The first Methodist church building in Polk County was located in the settlement of Bethel, the original name of the town of Homeland. It was there that a Methodist organization was established in 1859, about 3/4 of a mile from where Homeland Heritage Park stands today. Services were held weekly in a large campground, which was well known at that time to the Methodists around the state. The campground reportedly had a seating capacity of 700 and held week-long worship meetings every year, drawing in worshipers from places as distant as Ocala and Fort Myers. Services were also held inside the Bethel schoolhouse when it was built in 1878. In October of 1875, 5 acres of land were finally purchased for the construction of a Methodist church building within the Bartow district. The church built on that land was originally a crude wooden structure made of rough lumber. It had no windows, and services were lit by candlelight. There was no Methodist church in Bartow at the time, and services were held at various locations. At various times in the history of the church, it had united with other churches in the area to form a 2-point circuit for the reverend to attend. From 1883 to 1914, the church was united with Fort Meade, Bowling Green, and Alturas. Preachers in those early days received no salary and were usually paid for their work in produce or the little money worshipers could give. It was said that Bethel Church, as it was known back then, had well-attended and enthusiastic meetings, with 3 separate prayer meetings at the same time for men, women, and children. These were held in and around the small church building. Such large attendance encouraged the church members, and the congregation began to plan for a new, larger building to house its worshipers. New land was purchased in a more centralized part of town, and construction began in 1887. The new church, reportedly modeled after Bartow's Presbyterian church building, was estimated to cost $2,000. Over 2 years, this new building was built, with volunteer labor by members of the congregation. Mr. J.B. Crum, a respected pioneer of Homeland, known for owning a general store and inventing equipment used for sizing and packing citrus, was among these volunteers. Crum had been heavily involved in the church for years, and is named several times in historic documents as the builder of the church. The original steeple upon the new church was made entirely of wood that had been carved by J.B. Crum. Newspaper articles and church records put the end of construction for the new church between the years of 1889 and 1890. The surrounding parsonage and annex buildings were later additions, with the annex built in 1912 to be used for Sunday school, and the parsonage built in 1914 to house the clergy. The church had gone through several destructive hurricanes through the years, with damage done to the building in 1946 and 1960. The steeple was completely blown off during the 1946 storm, with repairs for the damages estimated at $3,000, more than the original cost of the building in 1887. The steeple was shortened to reduce the cost of repairs. Hurricane Donna brought more damage to the building in 1960, shattering the plaster in the building and causing the back wall to break away from the ceiling. Over time, members of the church gave donations for the repairs of the building, as well as donated several items including the present organ, piano, and pulpit furniture. In 1970, the last regular service of the original Homeland Methodist Church was held inside the building. The abandoned church building sat until 1986, when it was offered to the county to join the schoolhouse preservation efforts on the condition that moving fees were paid. It was donated by Mr. and Mrs. Casey Fletcher and Mr. and Mrs. Donald Wilson. The building was moved 300 yards south to where it stands today in the spring of that year. Cal Adams, the Bartow restoration contractor assigned to restoring the schoolhouse, was tasked with restoring the church. He was assisted with labor from the Polk Correctional Institution. Together with the Homeland Schoolhouse, the historic Homeland Methodist Church serves as a center of the Homeland community. It stands as a reminder of the faith and industriousness of Polk County's settlers through its enduring architecture. Today, the historic church building is available to reserve for weddings and church services.